We're in a mood again today. In 1972, a made-for-TV movie appeared that seemed to break a lot of rules. With a name like The Night Stalker, you expect either some kind of monstrous supernatural villain or a Buffy-type character who has some kind of calling to go around destroying monstrous supernatural villains. And if you went with the latter guess, you'd be half right. Our Night Stalker does indeed go around destroying monstrous supernatural villains. But the man himself is anything but what you expect.
Chapter 1. This is the story behind one of the greatest manhunts in history. Maybe you read about it, or rather what they let you read about it, probably as some minor item buried somewhere on a back page.
That's our hero. He's a reporter who has trouble finding a job. He's currently working for a small independent newspaper in Las Vegas, or at least he was when this happened.
However, what happened in that city between May 16th and May 28th of this year was so incredible that to this day the facts have been suppressed in a massive effort to save certain political careers from disaster.
Darren McGavin had well over 100 movie and TV credits when he landed this role, and it's the one that gave him cult immortality. In the main, he was a character actor who could play just about any type of role. Aside from Kolchak, he's also known for playing Murphy Brown's dad, a job that got him an Emmy nomination. His face had that perfect combination of confidence and confusion that was required to play Kolchak properly.
This will be the last time I will ever discuss these events with anyone. So when you have finished this bizarre account, judge for yourself its believability, and then try to tell yourself, wherever you may be, it couldn't happen here.
But we know it's going to, because if it didn't, we'd have nothing but commercials. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's okay with that, but I haven't met them yet.
Sunday, May 16th. At approximately 2:30 a.m., Cheryl Hughes was standing at the intersection of Casino Center and Fremont Streets waiting for a girlfriend to give her a lift home.
And get away from that guy. Her friend hasn't shown, and she's angry enough to start walking. Big mistake.
Cheryl Hughes was 23, 5 feet 5 1/2 inches tall, 118 pounds, blonde hair, light brown eyes, swing shift change girl at the Gold Dust Saloon.
Contrary to the imagery we're using, she's not a sex worker. In fact, none of the victims will be. But they will be attractive and dressed like she is, which to me kind of sends a mixed message. In 1972, sex work was still taboo everywhere except places like Las Vegas, so the visual we have is subtly hinting that these women quote-unquote asked for it by dressing that way and putting themselves in vulnerable positions. At the same time, they all have regular shift jobs and lives and all that good stuff, so their deaths are a loss to the city and to their loved ones. As I said, mixed messages. It won't affect the plot at all, but given the way attitudes have changed in 2022, it can get alternately puzzling and irritating. We'll do our best not to let it get in the way too much. And Cheryl Hughes will be found dead, stuffed into a trash can. We'll watch part of the autopsy from the point of view of her chest looking up at the doctors, and one of them goes to phone the district attorney. They won't come out and say it yet, but there's no blood left in the body.
I came into it 2 days later, called back 97 miles from the first vacation I had had in 2.5 years because the story is so big no one else can handle it, according to our lovable managing editor.
I've been all over a map of that area, and I have no idea what kind of vacation one might take 94 miles from Las Vegas. The two most likely prospects are St. George, Utah, I have no idea what's there, or Death Valley, California. I do know what's there. Hot.
Rumor has it that the day Anthony Albert Vincenzo was born, his father left town. The story may be apocryphal, but I believe it. The only point I wonder about is why his mother didn't leave too.
If she gave birth to him, she kind of had to be there for it. Kolchak wants nothing to do with this story. It's your basic 2-day-old homicide, and it's boring. He doesn't have a choice. Off to the hospital. He has informants all over town, and this guy is one of them.
Come on, tell me true now, John. Was there anything unusual about the autopsy?
No, all I know she lost a lot of blood.
Some spy.
I'm just a poor, hard-working doctor that occasionally takes pity on an aging reporter. Dr. O'Brien, any
Sounds like
messages
a
there for me?
Pulitzer Prize story to me.
Now go back to Vincenzo and tell him you tried and couldn't find any information. How about a different assignment?
Second stop, the Gold Dust Saloon, and a chat with Gail Foster, one of Cheryl Hughes' fellow workers, and a rather close friend of mine.
Poor Cheryl. I feel just terrible about it, Carl.
Well, honey, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
No, I want to help if I can.
She sounds all broken up about it, doesn't she? In 1968, a British show appeared called Journey into the Unknown. It was supposed to be a sort of Twilight Zone knockoff, and it lasted a whopping 17 episodes. That was where I saw Carol Lindley for the first time. The 10th episode was called Eve, and if you've seen the movie Mannequin with Kim Cattrall, you've seen that episode. Carol Lindley played a mannequin that came to life when a young man fell in love with her, and her name was Eve. Ms. Lindley's performance was so flat I couldn't finish watching it. She appeared on Fantasy Island interacting with Cyrano de Bergerac, and Cyrano's hat showed more emotion than she did. Her acting was practically one-dimensional, and as far as I could see, it never got any better. Her IMDb profile says she should have been a bigger star, but I disagree. I'm sure she was a fine person in her own right, and before the acting bug bit her, she had a very successful career as a model. And rightly so, she was incredibly beautiful. She should have stayed in her lane.
Not a footprint in sight.
Is that physically possible?
If it happened, it's possible.
Well, it sure looked like it happened.
Now, come on.
It's as though the guy threw her that far, which means he's as strong as the Incredible Hulk.
Look at her throat. She must have lost an awful lot of blood. Cheryl Hughes lost a lot of blood, too.
You read that in the newspapers, did you?
No, I didn't read that in the newspaper. This girl lost a lot of blood, Sheriff. But she didn't lose it here.
We're going to learn very quickly that Sheriff Lobo doesn't like Kolchak even a little bit. A lot of people have the same opinion.
Who said Bonnie Reynolds was thrown 22 feet into that car? The coroner? I haven't heard about it. Who said this new killing is connected with the Cheryl Hughes murder? The police? Not to me, they haven't. Who said Cheryl Hughes died of massive blood loss? The coroner again? No, he hasn't even turned in his report yet. And who, may I ask, said that a super powerful madman is running loose in Las Vegas? You hearing voices, Kolchak?
Oh, give me a break. No editor worth his salt would be asking those questions when he knows Kolchak was there and saw the body and all the rest. He knows his reporters have sources that have to remain anonymous, so why is he throwing such a fit about this particular story? Because of the super strong guy angle, mainly. It smacks of something superhuman or supernatural, and Vincenzo wants nothing to do with that kind of tabloid-style garbage.
I did not make up the facts. Oh, I know you're boy. Big-time reporter like you condemned to the sticks of those journalistic grooves. I did not make up... I know you'd like a big fat byline on a big fat story so you can pay your way back to a big fat city job. I did not... I expect you to report. Not to come up with fairy tales.
Looks like we have a little bit of professional jealousy, too. But when a third victim turns up, all the authorities close up like a scared clam.
We've had 3 murders in town, Bernie. We have one tremendously strong guy, maybe more, who goes around killing young girls. And they all lost a lot of blood.
Hey, you weren't supposed to know about that.
No, I'm not supposed to know about that. I know. What about you people down at the Bureau?
No, this is nothing for the Bureau to mess with at this stage.
Yeah.
Bernie Jenks there is Kolchak's contact at the FBI, but he's only marginally involved at this point. All he knows is there's things Kolchak isn't supposed to know, which isn't terribly helpful.
Carl Kolchak. Telephone, please. Carl Kolchak.
Kolchak.
Hi, Carl. I just thought you'd like to know I heard the Parkway Hospital was knocked over.
Yeah, knocked over for what? Cash, drugs, equipment, what? Blood.
Not a drop left in the place. This guy took all of it. Right now, the coroner is giving a press briefing. The sheriff, DA, police captain, and a few others are there. Bernie gave Kolchak a special invitation to sit in.
We found that death in each case was extremely swift, coming in something less than a minute. After the initial wounds were inflicted, the blood was drained very quickly, some kind of suction device being used. Now, this would explain why no blood was found anywhere in the victims or in the areas they were discovered.
Our DA is Larry Linville. The same year this movie aired, he became Major Frank Burns on MASH, the character you loved to hate on. In real life, he was anything but Frank Burns. Gary Berghoff, who played Radar, called him a Renaissance man, and it seems to have been true. He studied aeronautical engineering, among other things, and made a hobby of building and flying gliders. Everybody on MASH said he had the hardest job of all because he couldn't grow the character. The moment Frank became more human, he wasn't Frank anymore. Linville finally left the show because he realized there was nowhere else to take Frank, and if he continued, he'd just be doing the same thing over and over, and he was tired of it. You couldn't blame him.
Doctor, Kolchak, Daily News, do you have any idea what could have made these wounds?
They're not unlike the bite of a medium-sized dog.
What do you mean, dog? What?
Dog. What are you telling us? A dog did these murders?
I didn't mean to indicate that the wounds were actually inflicted by a dog, only that they're similar to those which might be caused by a dog.
In other words, they were made by long, sharp teeth. It pays to listen to the whole thing and not just key in on one word, gentlemen. Our coroner has one other startling revelation. The wounds also had human saliva in them.
What do you mean, human? Are you suggesting that each of these women was bitten in the throat by a man?
I believe that's what he just said.
At present, the evidence points that way. However, I couldn't and wouldn't hazard a guess as to motivation. I can only be sure they each died from shock, induced by massive loss of blood.
The three wise monkeys are so afraid of the implications, they're ready to call him a liar. A scenario is forming in Kolchak's head that nobody wants to think about.
Is it possible that he killed these women by biting them in the throat for the express purpose of drinking their blood?
Kolchak, now you're here by the mutual suffrage of us all.
Sufferance.
What?
It's sufferance, Sheriff.
Well, whatever it is, just shut up.
I think I know why they named him Sheriff Butcher. He's determined to butcher this investigation and shut down any talk that doesn't comport with his preconceived ideas.
There have been cases of people who, through some mental derangement, have come to believe they were vampires. In Germany in the 1920s, there was one fellow who did use his teeth to rip out his victims'
Now, we
throats.
are not going to jump to any conclusions about who or what killed these women.
Nobody's jumping to any conclusions. They're tossing out evidence and ideas to explain it. But as I said, the sheriff's worldview is feeling seriously threatened right now, and he won't have it. I do like the way the coroner is staying calm and clinical and rubbing the sheriff's nose in it, though. What's the story on the hospital theft?
Well, the latest is the nurse said she saw something funny out there last night, or early this morning. Seems that a tall, skinny guy dressed as an orderly was nosing around the refrigerated storage area.
Except the hospital doesn't employ an orderly who fits that description.
White male adult. 6'2" to 6'4", thin. About 175 pounds with pale complexion. Dark hair.
The sheriff immediately went out and arrested every white basketball player in town.
Mr. Payne, I shouldn't be too inclined to reject Mr. Kolchak's theory out of hand if I were you. It is at best highly speculative, but not altogether unwarranted.
But a report like that won't get him reelected, so put a sock in it, Doctor.
Kolchak. You can throw away that cassette. Now, this vampire stuff is to stay right in this room.
Translation, we're going to lie to the public. That's what this movie is really about. Politicians suppressing information that could be vital to public safety. And by the way, there's this new technology that allows him to record over the tape. It's not necessary to throw it away. Maybe you should renew your subscription to Popular Technology.
Until we have the assailant in custody, we say nothing about these women being drained of blood. There'll be no rumors, no reports in the paper. The official opinion at this time is that the cause of death is undetermined.
Our coroner doesn't like it, but he doesn't have much say in it. He's just a lab jockey.
We don't want to cause a panic. It's bad for police operations. It's bad for the people. And it's bad for business.
There it is. He said the quiet part out loud. It could cost me votes.
sorry. I guess I fell asleep.
I don't know how he could tell. She always sounds like she's asleep. He's musing about the killer, but she has something else in mind. I'm pretty sure that wasn't it. There's a fourth victim, and somebody saw the killer.
I saw him standing over there. I thought he was kissing her. And then he turned and she fell down over there by the car.
The victim was her daughter. She's shattered, but not too shattered to give a description of the guy and the car he drove away in.
Oh, adorable.
You're a sadist.
Well, I could take it back.
Ah, over my dead, plump body.
Listen, you magnificent morsel. The DMV is checking on the suspect's car. Now, you couldn't help me in that area, could you?
Of course not. Bribed again.
Depending on what kind of selection there is, he could probably bribe me with that, too.
How'd you like to see the killer's face?
Now we not only know what his face looks like, we know what the back of his left shoulder looks like, too. That should be enough to identify him. The effectiveness of a guard dog or attack dog is dependent on the target being afraid of the dog. Here's a little tip. If a dog is charging at you, stand your ground and don't be afraid. If it doesn't stop, when it gets close enough, plant your foot in its chest. I guarantee it'll not only stop, it'll go find something else to do, which is what this dog should have done. The lady won't have the good sense to get in the car, lock the doors, and drive away. I do not know why. But unlike the others, she simply disappears. So there's no way to know if we really have a fifth victim or not.
Oh, what do you know about vampires?
Well, only they wear dinner suits and talk with marbles in their mouth.
Oh, will you please be serious?
Watch my natural habitat, darling.
Open it.
Gail is inclined to believe it's a real vampire. She has him read all the lore. They fear sunlight and crosses, and you have to kill them during the day with a wooden stake to the heart. Everything this guy has done fits the stories. Now Kolchak is wavering, but there's no time to ponder it. Our suspect just got caught raiding another hospital's blood supply, and everybody in the place is trying to subdue him. He just threw one guy out a third-story window. Needless to say, that escalated quickly. He just took who knows how many bullets and kept going, seemingly not even fazed. He was throwing full-grown men around like they were Ken dolls. Kolchak has photos of all of it. Let's see the three Stooges keep the lid on it now.
Here's a rundown on the Scotland Yard and the Interpol findings. Subject, Janos Skorzny. Born in Craiesti, Romania, 1899.
Now, wait just a minute. You trying to tell me this guy's over 70 years old? Come on, Bernie, your boys have come up with a wrong man.
Like hell we have.
To paraphrase Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in your narrow mind, Deputy Dog.
These facts have been triple-checked and confirmed. Now, look, I've been up all night, and I'm pretty tired. Now, do you want it or don't you?
All right, Bernie, just take it easy.
Keep in mind, Bernie is a Fed. He doesn't answer to anybody here. He can say and do as he pleases, and if you don't like it, you can take it up with your congressman.
Skorzny's father died in 1923. He left somewhere between $75 and $100 million. At this time, he began to travel, and he became known throughout Eastern Europe as a big lover of nightlife. Now, we don't have a lot more on him before World War II.
He showed up in London just in time for the Blitz, posing as a doctor who specialized in hematology. Basically, anywhere that there's massive death and violence, he can be found doing some kind of job examining the dying and the freshly dead. The picture is getting clearer and clearer. Everywhere he goes, there are unexplained killings involving massive loss of blood.
Now, because of his British citizenship, he is an international fugitive. So my people are very interested in it. This is no longer just a local matter.
Hopefully that means he's taking over from Yippee Yappy and Yahooey.
I was at the hospital yesterday, and a lot of things were happening that you just simply cannot explain away. Sheriff, your own men shot at him, some at point-blank range. How come didn't even slow him down? How come a man over 70 years old can outrun a police car?
I'm sure the only reason he's squirming like that is because the chair is uncomfortable.
How come this same man, when slugged in the head, doesn't even bleed? Now, I saw those gashes in his head, and whatever was trickling down from those wounds, it was clear. It was
now, this
not
guy's
blood.
got a motor mouth. Can't we shut him up?
No, let him hang himself. Then we'll finally be rid of him.
These clowns couldn't care less about solving the case. They care about their own image, and Mr. Scoresny is warping that image. If a few more women have to be sacrificed to keep that from happening, well, them's the breaks. Kolchak says the only way you're going to catch this guy is if you proceed as though he were a real vampire. Because whatever else he may be, he thinks that's what he is.
You lost your mind. Can you imagine the total blind panic this town would be in if the public were told we were actually looking for a vampire?
They already know, dude. It's all over the papers now.
Not to mention the irreparable damage it would do to the image of law enforcement in Vegas.
Ah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's it. Boy, I really can't believe that you guys are so afraid of appearing stupid that you'll ignore the only possible way of nailing him.
Told you. He's got to be up for re-election, and he must have a pretty formidable opponent because he's scared down to his toes.
I don't care what's been printed in the newspapers. This man is still classified as an ordinary maniac, and he'll be settled by standard police procedures.
Oh, boy.
And you better start cooperating with that fact, Kolchak, or you want to get your pushy-tushy kicked right out of town. You dig?
Yes, sir, I dig.
People quit saying that 2 years ago, Mr. Payne. Don't try to be hip. You're the dictionary definition of the establishment. They have a massive dragnet going for all the good that'll do. Kolchak has his own way of looking for the vampire.
Got it?
Got it.
Repeat. What did I say?
Show every real estate agent in town a picture of this guy's puss and ask him if they sold a house to anybody that looks like him.
Good boy, you got it. Now get going.
Now, wait a minute. When did I lose this last dollar?
Instead of losing it, give it to the dealer for a tip, or just leave it on the table and take bets on who picks it up first.
Nicky, has the idea of winning ever occurred to you?
What an odd concept. We've seen Elisha cook many times, and he always turns in a memorable performance. He can do it with one word, as we saw. As Kolchak is headed home, he hears on his police scanner that authorities have Scoresny cornered. He'd better get over there with his camera.
Get up.
Slowly.
By the time it's done, 2 cops are dead, a third is circling the drain, and Scoresny has gotten away. Guess who's finally ready to listen to Kolchak's crazy plan?
Before I do, is it agreed that in return for my help, you will grant me the exclusive rights to the entire story?
Well, let's say it's agreeable if we decide to follow your suggestions regarding the suspect.
What's the alternative, Payne? Keep doing what you're doing and get more cops killed? How many lives is your image worth, dude?
Fine, because if you don't follow my suggestion, you're going to be chasing your suspect till doomsday.
Kolchak, Just get on with it.
Speaking of images, Kolchak tends to be a mirror showing the sheriff how inept his image looks. Butcher doesn't like that, but making changes is hard. It's easier to break the mirror. Claude Akins is handing in his usual outstanding performance. I really want to slap this guy until his nostrils fall out. Kolchak shows them a cross, a stake, and a mallet. He says, "You'll issue these to every man out there. Don't try to approach him at night. He can't be hurt during the night. Instead, follow him to his home, wait until day, and then pound the stake into his heart."
There's a legal phrase for that, Kolchak. You might have run into it once or twice in your broad experience. It's called premeditated murder.
By definition, a vampire is already dead. You can't murder someone who's already dead. But Sheriff Deadeye still doesn't believe Skorzeny is a vampire. That means all his men are either lying or crazy, but as long as his little bubble of belief stays intact, he doesn't care. Payne calls for a conference in the next room.
Okay, Kolchak, you got yourself a deal. Conditional.
What's that?
Butcher here will issue the crosses, the mallets, the stakes. The one thing he won't do is depart from established police procedures. If feasible, Skorzeny is to be taken alive and held for trial.
Your Honor, the defense moves for an immediate dismissal on the grounds of my client's right simply to live. Are we to destroy his life simply because his existence requires the taking of other lives? I think not.
Trial?
That's right, trial. Trial.
All right. In return for what?
You'll get the exclusive rights to the story.
Good.
When the blackout is lifted.
Yeah. Any other conditions?
One more.
What's that?
If it turns out you're wrong, you're to be out of town in 12 hours.
Why do I get the feeling that's the outcome they're really expecting? Mickey is waiting for Kolchak at his car. He's found the suspect's house. Kolchak isn't about to entrust this to the three blind mice. He'll head there himself and have Mickey tell Jenks later, after he's had time to examine the place and after sunrise. He has a fair idea what he's going to find, but it's still pretty creepy when he does. Hey, Nitpick, this guy stole your mustache. And there it is, complete with soil from his homeland, just as the legends say. But the worst is yet to come.
Show me forms. Shh. Relax, son. His own private blood bank.
He uses the IV to run blood into her, then drinks it from her. Dracula did something similar in Bram Stoker's novel, though he didn't have a blood bank to replenish the girl. He just had to wait until she produced more naturally. Skorzeny's bank is much more easily refilled. She's so weak she can't even talk, but before Kolchak can free her, Skorzeny comes home. There's nothing to do but hide in the closet. Most vampires of legend also have certain psychic abilities. I guess Gale forgot to have him read that part. For now, the cross is keeping him at bay. Interview with the Vampire turned that whole thing on its ear, but the legend is consistent throughout the ages. Even the vampire mythos in Buffy acknowledged it. The vampire is a creature of pure hate and evil, which is why a symbol of holiness makes it recoil like that. It's a good thing Kolchak took that part of it seriously. It's just too bad he didn't look where he was going. Now he's in trouble. Bernie isn't faring any better, but at least he got the guy off Kolchak. Sheriff is not, Captain No It Ain't, and a whole bunch of cops aren't far behind him. Armed with the cross again, Kolchak backs Skorzeny onto the stairs and does what he has to do. It's over. The lady will be rescued and she'll be as okay as anybody who's been through something like that can be. Kolchak has his story and he's excited about making a journalistic comeback and being a big name again.
Hey, why don't you stop working nights
Oh, Carl, not that again.
and marry me? Yeah, well, you're a good cooker and a good kisser. Why not?
Oh, baby, you're gonna love New York City.
Does she want to go to New York? I must have missed the part where he asked her about that.
Honey, after this story hits the news services with my byline on it.
Us married?
Yes, us married. Don't look now, baby. But Kolchak's coming back in style.
Uh-huh. I tried to tell him she doesn't want to go to New York. When he hands Vincenzo the story, the boss is a little subdued. He says, Jenks wants to see you at the DA's office.
Is your name Carl Kolchak, and do you reside in the city of Las Vegas?
Well, you know my name's Carl Kolchak. What's going on?
Carl Kolchak, you're under arrest on the charge of murder. The state requires that you be informed that you have the right to remain silent.
They actually have a warrant to arrest him for killing Janos Skorzeny. He can't believe it.
I pull your fat out of the fire, and you do this.
Carl, will you just sit down a minute and listen to them?
Bernie, you were there.
Carl, just listen.
As I said before, he's federal. He doesn't have to put up with any of this. He could put a stop to it with one phone call, but he won't.
This is your story, Kolchak. It's already being printed. This morning, shortly before sunrise, Las Vegas Sheriff deputies under the command of Sheriff Warren A. Butcher, 45, surrounded the home of Janos Skorzeny, a fugitive from a federal warrant, and in a pitch gun battle were forced to kill him.
Never.
His choices are run that story and leave town at once, or get tried for murder and go to prison, or worse.
Pick him up, Kolchak. Pick him up and get out of town. Now.
He wants to call Gail. Bernie says she's not there.
What have you done with her?
Nothing. We just asked the young lady if she'd be good enough to leave town.
She's an undesirable element, Kolchak, and we don't want undesirable elements in Las Vegas.
They disappeared her. He'll try, but he'll never find her again. Since he's already on the hook for murder, I can think of 4 more he'd like to commit, and I wouldn't blame him a bit.
Carl, there's nothing I can do. Carl, you let me know where you end up, huh?
Yeah, sure, Bernie. I'll keep in touch.
We can get together for coffee. I'll be sure to bring a big knife so the first time you turn your back, I can return the favor. How's that sound?
There is still one fact that cannot be buried. After the death of Janos Skorzeny, he and all of his victims were immediately cremated. Why?
It ends with him saying, so now just tell yourself it couldn't happen here. This movie is an indictment of public officials everywhere. We know they lied to us. The only question is about what and how much. The thing is, in 1972, it was a lot easier for them because it took a long time to dig into a story like this and find real information. Kolchak says there's no longer a file in Washington about this guy under his real name. Today, somebody could hop onto the net and dig deep enough and find the real story. You couldn't do that in the early 70s. The really goofy thing is, we see way too many politicians today who still think they can do it with impunity. They don't understand that we are now living in the age of instant information. We can fact check them before the words finish leaving their mouths. Some politicians are starting to grasp that and are cleaning up their act. Others can't figure out how they keep getting caught because they have as much grasp of modern technology as my pet spider up there. The best thing would be to just stop lying and be straight with the people who put you into office, but that might be asking a bit much. The movie was a hit. It dominated its time slot and people couldn't stop talking about it. What to do in such a situation? Make a sequel, of course. And when the sequel is an equally big hit, make a series, which is eventually where we're heading. Until next time, I'm Irving, and Hazel's over there somewhere, and you're hanging out in Irving Zoo. Confidence and confusion that was required. That was required to do this with enough air. It's as though the guy threw her that. The only question is about by that. The only question is if I can spit those words.